everyone, just coming at you with a quick video, kind of an emergency recording, because I found, I think, the most ridiculous questions from readers article of all time, and I'm kind of freaking out about it. For those of you who don't know, in the Watchtower magazine, Jehovah's Witnesses magazine, they used to pretend like anybody read it and ever wrote them with questions. So they used to publish questions that readers actually sent in, supposedly. Sometimes it seems like maybe they're fake and just a way to clarify doctrines that they care about, but maybe no readers actually care about. But it's hard to say. But this is probably the most amazing one that I've read. This is from the July 15th, 1964 issue of the Watchtower. And I'm willing to bet that even though all witnesses know this is a thing, I will bet that they, like me, had never actually read the article behind the reasoning behind the thing. I'll stop the suspense. Here's the thing.
Would the tossing of a flower bouquet...
I'm gonna say bouquet.
Would the tossing of a flower bouquet to the bridesmaids be proper at a Christian wedding, or is it a practice handed down from pagan customs?
From FG, USA shit, okay, well...
The bride's tossing her flower bouquet to the bridesmaids is nothing but a pagan practice. It smacks of superstition, as for instance, that the particular one of the bridesmaids who catches the bride's flower bouquet is thereby said to be marked for being the next one of the girls to be married.
First of all, this is a very confusing sentence. The bride's tossing her flower bouquet to the bridesmaids is nothing but a pagan practice. Is nothing but. That's the only thing it is. That's the only thing it's ever been. And don't let any chumps tell you otherwise. It's the year 1964, and this will be true in the year 2024. For the same exact reasons. We will have learned no more reasons for this to be true, but it's nothing but a pagan practice. It smacks of superstition, which is incredible because smacks of just means seems like. This kind of gives me the vibes that it is superstitious. When, of course, the entire wedding ceremony is superstitious. If you make it a whole big ceremony and exchange pagan circlets of life connection between two living bonded soul fleshes. Oh wait, it's just called a wedding ring? You can kind of see anything as a pagan ritual because probably nothing started as a ceremony to honor Jehovah specifically. They pick and choose with what's normal with Western culture and what weird little things they can nitpick to just seem like they're no part of the world. Like, this is a very low effort commitment, and yet you feel special that you don't do it as a witness.
Since such a practice takes place at worldly weddings and is merely a traditional custom of paganism, it could not be considered holy conduct and thus ought be eliminated from Christian weddings. Such a practice definitely should not take place inside the local kingdom hall if the marriage is performed there. If anyone wants to indulge in such a practice at a wedding ceremony or reception outside the kingdom hall, that is his own responsibility. His. So not the bride still doesn't get a say in whether she gets to toss her own flower bundle. It is certainly setting a bad and unchristian example, disclosing evidence of considerable immaturity. Evidence!
Oh, what damning evidence this is, in the crime of throwing flowers.
So traditional pagan customs such as this must be banned from the Kingdom Hall, inasmuch as such things not only do not have a biblical foundation, but they result in a division of opinion on the part of members of the congregation.
So that part's kind of amazing, because presumably there wouldn't have been a division about it if Watchtower had simply written, there's no need to be divided on this, it's a personal conscience matter. But now that they have said that it needs to be eliminated and it's unchristian and it smacks of superstition, and that if you do it, you're bad, and you're a bad Christian and a bad person and a bad father. Well, that's what they wrote in their magazine, and so then of course it becomes a huge deal, and now it's not allowed and it's viewed as pagan. But that was a little trick that they just pulled. They did a little tricky number on you. But you didn't pull it over on me, except for when you did for almost 30 years of my life. Alright, I got by the best. They're not the best.
Many would be shocked by such a performance inside a building that has been dedicated to the pure worship of Jehovah God. It could prove to be a cause of stumbling for others, and in this regard the Apostle Paul, and I don't remember where my accent's supposed to be from.
The only reason why anyone would be shocked at going, Shock would be such an extreme emotion to see a happy woman tossing flowers happily to her friends. So, this is indeed still the practice, or the practice of not practicing amongst Jehovah's Witnesses. You are not allowed to do the flower bouquet thing, and I know at my wedding and every wedding I was at as a witness, they say this thing, like they make an announcement after the ceremony and after the bride and the groom kiss, this is how we kiss, so... try and figure that one out. They make this announcement like,
Please let there be no throwing of rice or bouquets or...
I don't think they say bouquets. I think they say flowers. I think they say rice and flowers. That sounds crazy now that I'm saying it out loud, but they definitely make an announcement to not throw rice. This really blew my mind because, to be honest, as a witness, I just accepted this. Like, I obviously believed that the flower throwing thing at weddings was pagan, and pagan meant Satan's favorite religion, and so he basically made it. Like, people who love Satan and hate Jehovah personally, and specifically in grotesque detail, are the sorts of people who throw flowers at weddings. That's what pagans do. And midsummer, they got all those flowers. It just makes you wonder about flowers, those pagans. So I just accepted that because at some point in my life, I'm sure I asked,
why is that again?
And I was told,
oh, well, that's pagan.
And so I said,
oh, okay, that makes sense.
Now, that, of course, didn't make sense, but it was just a small thing, had no impact on my life. Not even at my own wedding was I like, oh, we don't get to do the flower thing that I love so much in movies. It's just a really small, minor thing that I was told was pagan. But first of all, why would that be bad necessarily? The classic go-to counterexample of Watchtower's logic here is wedding rings. They readily acknowledge, in what I'm sure I will show on the screen right now, there are pagan origins or false worship origins to the concept of wearing a wedding ring, but they can see that it is no longer associated with that in mainstream culture. Therefore, it's not wrong to wear a wedding ring. Well, obviously, nobody associates throwing a bouquet with pagan rituals where they sacrificed children and chanted to payment or whatever they did. It's just like a fun little goof at the end of your wedding that you're like, okay, who's gonna get married next? Oh, Nancy, right? Yeah, like Nancy's ever gonna get married ever. And everyone has a good time, and Nancy gets to feel like a human for 5 seconds in her life. So this is obviously not a pagan practice at all. In fact, I can prove it. I know 0 pagans who have ever done this, but I have been to weddings where they do this. What is shocking to me reading this is obviously how completely illogical this is. There's no logic is what I mean by that. Like, it is the actual Latin breakdown of the word. Ill, which means not. Logic, which means smart. This is not a smart thing that they're saying. Let's think about this here. It's acts of superstition. And they give their reason. They don't just say it, they provide a reasonable explanation. For instance, implying that there's more examples, although they give none, that the particular one of the bridesmaids who catches the bride's flower bouquet is thereby said to be marked for being the next one of the girls to be married. This was written before the invention of the computer, so it was definitely written before the invention of AI. I don't actually know if that's true about the computer. It might not be. I don't know. When did the Dharma Initiative invent the computer? This sounds like something that ChatGPT would write. Like, it sounds like something that is written by a person puppeteering a corpse with chopsticks or something. Like, there's no way that anyone would intentionally write a sentence this confusingly. But what they're trying to say is still insane. I really got sidetracked by the grammar there. And it's not even wrong. It just is, it's inhuman. It lacks... I'll say it lacks a soul. Suspicious that they say that the body has no soul. The person is said to be marked thereby. They put in thereby, which makes it sound a little bit more magic-y and pagan-y. But really what they're just saying is that, yeah, it's just kind of a fun little tradition that, oh, if you catch the bouquet, it's good luck. You're going to be the next one married. But that's the concept of luck. The concept of anything good ever happening in your life, that good luck, that wind that blew your way, you're not giving Jehovah credit for that. You're crediting what? A bouquet? You know who probably invented bouquets? Pagans. What, are you going to go and check How? How are you going to even check? How are you going to even check what they're saying? They don't cite a source. They're not like, according to the Pagan Encyclopedia, such a practice definitely should not take place inside the local kingdom hall if the marriage is performed there. Now, that's a weird little caveat at the end. You're definitely not allowed to do it in the kingdom hall if the marriage is performed there, but you might be allowed to do it inside a kingdom hall if the marriage is performed elsewhere. So you could have your marriage elsewhere. I think this is the takeaway of this article. You can have your wedding at a dumpster in front of town hall. It doesn't matter, but you can come back to the kingdom hall and do the bouquet ceremony, which of course summons the gods of marriage onto Nancy. Watchtower, that's not what's happening. This is another episode of That's Not What's Happening.
That is not what is happening. That is not what is happening.
Watchtower, that's not what's happening. Nobody views this as a pagan ritual. Like, nobody who does the flower thing at the wedding is going like, and now we shall do the ceremony, whereby I shall toss the pagan cursed flowers, and so it shall summon the goddess of love magic upon... No, Nancy. Yeah, right, like she's ever gonna get married. Women aren't doing that at weddings, or anyone who throws flowers at weddings. Even people who do it by accident. Like, no, that's not a thing that happens. In fact, I would bet almost anything that anyone who's done that at their wedding is like, oh, you gotta do the bouquet thing. You gotta do the toss the flower thing. That's not a thing that's happening at weddings. Nobody thinks like that. So it's weird that you're implying that it does. But it almost is like they acknowledge defeat at some point in the course of this article, because they're like, well, first of all, it's nothing but a pagan practice. And you're like, how do you know? And they're like, well, it smacks of superstition. Like, for instance, that the particular one of the bridesmaids who catches the bride's flower bouquet is thereby said to be marked for being the next one of the girls to be married. It just sounds like they're making it up as they go along. So maybe me haunting whoever wrote this from the afterlife where there is no now. I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense, you idiot. And he's like, well, okay, well, the point is that it's worldly, okay? They do it at worldly weddings, and everything that's worldly is pagan. And so shut the fuck up, okay? Ghost, leave me alone. And what's so strange about this is, let's assume FG exists. Fitzgerald from USA. Let's say this is a real question that came up. Well, I can imagine that it did at some point, because when you're a witness, anything that is slightly ritualistic, you're like, is that pagan? Are we sure that that's not pagan? That is what it was like growing up. I don't know if that word has fallen out of favor in like more recent publications.
I don't know what's up with the kids these days.
But back in my day, kids, we called everything pagan, and asked if it was pagan. And the reasoning behind something could just be that it's pagan. It has pagan origins. Like, that's still their explanation for all the holidays. I just don't know if that word is used as much, because something being pagan was just like a catchphrase. So you would just examine anything like toasting, like clinking glasses together. Well, that's pagan. Even though, why? It's just like, isn't it just kind of neat to be like, hey, high five, but with cups? That's not enough of a simple pleasure for you, Jeffrey Jackson? Liar about child abuse person? I really should have said this right off the bat, but saying that something smacks of superstition, and your reasoning is people who throw flowers think that they're summoning pagan gods to bestow marriage upon Nancy, like she's ever gonna get married. That's obviously superstitious in and of itself. Now let's say somebody did not write in this question. That just means that this was a personal bugaboo of somebody who worked at Watchtower. Somebody was like, I just cannot deal with the fact that people are performing this pagan ritual at weddings. I see these flowers getting thrown, and these people just don't understand that pagans invented that. And someone turns to him and they're like, well, how could you possibly know that? Did you like read a book on pagan flower throwing? And he's like, just shut the fuck up, okay? I just don't like it. Here, I'm gonna write an article. Good thing I work in the writing department. And then somebody in the governing body is like, yeah, you're right, that does sound pagan. I hate that shit. And so then they printed it, and now 8 million people have to do it for literally no reason. If you're a witness and you watched this, first of all, I appreciate you sticking it out. I hope that you were able to chuckle at your beliefs, because this was my belief, and I'm chuckling at it. You noticed all the chuckling, didn't you? All the laughs we had. But anyway, I just thought that was funny, and I wanted to talk about it.
That is not what is happening.
As a witness, we went, my witness family, we stayed in this cabin that we had rented in Canada. Not like some property we owned, just we wanted to go there for a week to vacation. So we rented this property online, or they might have had to use a travel agent. That actually, I think, is part of it. And we got there, and there were all these masks on the walls. They might have been African masks. I just remember seeing masks. Oh no. And then all my family members are taking them down and like covering them in newspaper and putting them in a shed that was outside the cabin. Why? Well, because they're spiritistic. They're masks. They could be harboring demons. Idiot. Why'd you even ask me that? Give me some more newspaper. I see a couple more masks hanging in the bathroom.